Alright guys, for today's build, I've got the Divine Assembler for Warlocks. This build is centered around being that support that buffs and heals everyone around you and just makes it really easy for your team to survive and deal extra damage. But getting right into the aspects, we are going to be running Heat Rises so that you can fire your weapons, use your melee and grenades all while gliding. It's just a really nice thing to have since you're going to be always trying to buff your teammates so you're never caught off guard while you're in the air. And also to be taking advantage of while you are airborne, defeating targets will grant you melee energy. And for the second, we are going to be running Touch of Flame so that our healing grenade has improved strength of cure and restoration. Of course, as I just mentioned, we're going to be running Healing Grenade, but for the melee, I prefer to run Celestial Fire so that you can get those melee hits from a much longer distance and much more consistently. Your glide can be whatever you want, but your rift definitely should be a healing rift, since this build is primarily around making sure your team stays alive and gets buffs. Well of Radiance is the go-to choice for super because, again, you are trying to make sure that your team stays alive and is always being buffed. Well of Radiance is just a no-brainer. For the fragments, we're going to be running Ember of Benevolence, so applying Restoration, Cure, or Radiant to our allies increases our grenade melee and class ability recharge for a short duration. We're also going to be taking advantage of this a couple different ways, which I will explain in just a moment. But we are going to be running Ember of Torches for our solar fragment, so that powered melee attacks make us and nearby allies radiant. And then Ember of Empyrean, so solar weapons or ability final blows will extend the duration of restoration and radiant effects applied to us. So it's just a really nice way to make sure that we have that extra survivability. And Ember of Solace, so that the radiant and restoration effects will have increased duration, which makes it much less stressful to try and use Ember of Empyrean to prolong that even more. For our weapons, we are going to be running Lumina. It is a very nice hand cannon, in my opinion, ever since the buff. But the main reason is we are going to be using Blessing of the Sky. This actually works in tandem with the Embers of Benevolence, so it will be increasing our grenade, melee, and class ability every time we use our noble rounds to buff our allies. And then for the second weapon, I like to run Explosive Personality from Season of the Chosen. It is still available. It's just a prior season. You just have to go to the helm, and you can start grinding for it. I like running Auto-Loading Holster and Frenzy because it's just a really easy weapon to swap in and out of, so that you usually will have Lumina up, but this is an easy way to swap out and get a quick multi-kill with Solar. And also, Hezen's Vengeance with Cluster Bombs and Impulse Amplifier makes it really easy to deal solar splash damage. So, on the helmet for the mods, we're going to be running Solar Elemental Affinity with Well of Ordnance. So picking up a Solar Elemental Well will grant you additional grenade energy. And Double Harmonic Siphon, so that whenever we rapidly defeat targets with damage matching our subclass, aka Solar, we will generate a much more powerful Orb of Power to generate more super energy for ourselves. On the gauntlets, we're going to be running Stasis Elemental Affinity so that we can take advantage of Grenade Kickstart. And we're going to be running Font of Wisdom, so picking up a Elemental Well matching our subclass will temporarily max out our intellect so that we don't have to worry about our intellect stat. On the chest piece, we're going to be running a Solar Elemental Affinity with Explosive Wellmaker. Rapidly defeating combatants with explosive explosive damage spawns a solar elemental well. This is why I want to run cluster bombs on Husband's Vengeance. Makes it much easier to get that solar splash damage. And also explosive personality, same concept. Personally, I like to run Concussive Dampener to reduce AoE damage, and this season's mod of Armor of the Dying Star to reduce solar and void damage. The exotic armor piece we're going to be running is Boots of the Assembler. So standing in a healing rift creates noble seekers that seek out allies that are not in a rift and heals them. Standing in an empowering rift will give an ally a damage bonus, but that's why we're using Lumina, so that we can still be giving damage bonus plus radiant from our melee. Oh, and also just a quick little note. Each time a Noble Seeker finds one of your allies, it will extend the duration of your rift briefly. And finally, we've got our Bond. We're going to run a Stasis Elemental Affinity so that we can take advantage of Utility Kickstart. And then we're going to be running the seasonal mod Classy Restoration. So every time we drop our rift with a solar class, we're going to be getting that restoration ×2, and again, it just really helps with survivability for ourselves at least, and it'll make it much easier for, if we are surviving, to buff our allies. And I threw Elemental Light on there. I've honestly never seen it proc, because you have to actually defeat a target while dropping your well, so you're likely not going to be able to take advantage of it, but there wasn't really anything else I could slot on this for a combat mod, so I just kind of threw it in there. So, real quick, before I show a quick little gameplay demonstration, which won't be too, what's the right word? The best way to showcase this build, because you do need teammates, and I am alone. But, real quick, Destiny, Dawnsinger hood, gloves, the Celestial robes, no ornament for the Boots of the Assembler, and Phoenix Fire for the Bond, all with the pole position shader. So the easiest way is run into an encounter, use your melee, get that off, get a well, you can drop that. I killed almost all of them with the melee, so that didn't really work out too well, but coming around the corner, I have no idea how that went that way, but there's your elemental well. Pick it up. You can just keep on buffing yourself. Let's see if I can defeat one of these guys with the... Oh, wow, I actually did. Alright, well that's cool. But this build is much more potent when playing with teammates, and it shines in being that support Warlock that a lot of people have kind of wanted since D1. But that is the Divine Assembler build. Thanks for watching. I will see you next week.